official. Isn't it great? Electronic voices sound so realistic these days compared to what they used to. But
yeah, Tim, start the show.
Hey. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Friends Talking Nerdy. This is Tim Jousma, and joining me, as always, I have the greatest legal mind in the Pacific Northwest. It is Professor Aubrey.
Hi, everybody.
And we have special guests as well.
Yay!
Tell the good folks at home just who you are.
Caitlyn
and I'm Cassie
from PNW Haunts and Homicides.
Yes, we're a podcast that covers stories from the Pacific Northwest.
Haunts and homicides.
Oh yes, yeah. Haunts and homicides. I wasn't sure if they were going to ask us later, like to describe our pod. So
we're totally going to talk a lot about your pod, but we're very excited that you are here with us today in a joint sort of Wonder Twins podcast hour moment.
Yes, minus Space Monkey Gleek. But first question we ask anybody new on the show, and this is the first time we ask two people at once. What is your nerd origin story?
Cassie, you go first.
You want me to go first? So I think I kind of like suppressed my nerd through like childhood and high school. And then like kind of when I got, into adult, and I was like, you know what? I like nerdy stuff. Like I really like Harry Potter and like all of these things. I think maybe like what like really got me was Game of Thrones. And I was like, yep, I'm a nerd.
What about you?
I think probably pretty early on in high school. It started with drama club, and then it was yearbook, and then newspaper. And I don't know. I think I started out pretty nerdy. I used to read like a book a day, and it just sort of spiraled from there.
Nice. Good to hear. Now, your podcast, PNW Haunts and Homicides. I've had a chance to check out a couple of episodes and really enjoyed what I heard. Let our folks in a little bit about the show. Talk about the show's history, and also share a couple of stories, because what I do like about each episode is the fact that you do have like one major story you focus on to dive in on. So yeah, just let us know about PNW Haunts and Homicides.
Let's see. Cassie and I know each other from high school, and I got this really great idea during quarantine. Seems like I wasn't the only one. Hey, what do you think about starting a podcast? Like the first time that we saw each other for like years, I was like, hey, do you want to do this with me?
I was like, yes, absolutely. Sounds amazing. And she's like, I really want to do true crime. And I was like, okay, one condition. We have to do paranormal as well. Like we have to combine them, because that's my favorite is the paranormal. I do love true crime, but yeah.
So we just take turns basically spooking each other. It's year round for us.
That is really great. It's great that you were able, I think podcasts always say a lot about the hosts, right? And you were able to like compromise and come up with this really unique combination of paranormal and homicide. And so now both of you are happily doing the podcast. It's so awesome. What do you think that combo sort of inspires in people, or like what are you hoping that people get from listening to your show?
I kind of think that, typically people who are into true crime or paranormal are kind of like into both of them. But if they're not, they do have the option to like, since every episode is either a haunt or a homicide, usually, they do have the option to like skip the true crime if they want to just listen to the ghost stories, or vice versa.
Yeah, it's technically allowed, though not encouraged.
Right. There might be punishments if you do that, right?
Correct.
How often do you put out your podcast?
It's weekly.
Every Tuesday.
Yeah.
All
so
right.
We get to say, see you next Tuesday.
Super Tuesday. That's awesome.
Now, during the run of your show, like I mentioned, and like you mentioned, you've have particular stories that you mentioned in each episode. What are a couple of stories that have really resonated well with your audience?
I think like it's a tough one because I feel like we're still pretty new and I think people are still kind of getting to know us. But I think that so far the response has been really great to Forest Park, Ravens Manor. The Warehouser case was a lot of fun because we actually got to interview the author of Deep in the Woods.
And the Ravens Manor too, we interviewed a
Yeah.
paranormal investigator that did a investigation at Ravens Manor. So it's cool to like interview these people that have, you know, close ties to the topic.
Yeah. They know a lot more than us,
Yeah.
but we're just using their brains for content.
And we do have a really unique thing that we just came out with where our newest episode is going to be covering a haunt and a homicide. So that episode will have both for everyone to enjoy. I think that would be really fun.
Yeah. We're excited about that. We did that collaboration with Upper Left Corner. So we're excited about that one. Comes out this next week for spooky season. By the time you're listening to this, it's already out.
Yeah. Go listen.
Now, I did say, was it a ghost murder earlier when you were telling me about this? And you said, no, it was not a ghost murder, but are they related at all? Or are they two unrelated stories?
Excellent question.
Do we want to spoil it?
Well, if your episode comes out on
fascinating anyway.
Well, by the time this comes out, if you said the episode comes out on Tuesday, the episode would have already been out. So our audience, if you are listening to this after you're done listening to our show, head on over to PNW Haunts and Homicides to hear the full story. But let's tease it for the audience.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So they are related. It's a case from LeGrand, Oregon. So it's an interesting one.
It is interesting. There's kind of a couple twisty turnies in the story. It's pretty fun. It was fun to tell.
Sorry, I'll just tell the audience I have like a tickle in my throat and I keep like turning on mute or walking away and coughing and I just didn't get it coordinated that time, so I apologize.
Yeah.
That time of year though, the change in the weather is really it's fucking me up, I'll be honest.
Yeah, that has been the thing about the Pacific Northwest for me, coming from Michigan this time of year. It's like all kinds of pollen in the air and just everything's going nuts, and then it gets cold and rainy and you do end up tending to get a little sick at times. But did you have any further questions?
I'm sure I did before that whole cough thing.
You just coughed them right out of your brain.
Yeah.
What is another story on your show that you wanted to talk to our audience about?
Anything specific you wanted to talk about?
No, we already talked about the Warehousers. So I feel like, what's your favorite haunt so
my
far?
favorite,
outside of the ones we already mentioned?
I know, right? So I think my favorite was probably Pike Place because I had no idea it was haunted, and it's such a well-known place in Seattle that everyone knows, and it's just full of ghosts, and I was super shocked.
There's so many ghosts. Allegedly.
It feels very spooky in there. Tim and I, we did an episode where we did Tim's birthday celebration. We went to Seattle and we hung out in Pike Place, and it is indeed a spooky place. I could definitely see how there could be some ghosts lurking because it's so labyrinthy and lots of nooks and crannies and dark spaces to hang out.
Yeah. Now, on each episode of your podcast, as the promo mentioned, and as you start off each episode, you do a tarot reading. What brought on that as a segment on your show, and how has that helped you out?
I think that was Caitlyn's idea.
Yeah, I like the idea of, we were already combining the true crime and the paranormal. And that was something that, some shows will occasionally talk about, some ghost stories or things like that. But really the rotation that we have going between the two genres, I thought like that felt kind of a little bit unique. But the tarot was just something that at least I hadn't seen anybody else doing that. And I felt like that could be fun. People that, are into tarot will, be interested in kind of seeing how the card will relate to each specific case. So whether it's a haunt or it's a homicide or somewhere in between or both, you can kind of get whatever we think maybe the insight is on that. So.
Oh, that's really cool. So you actually do a sort of paranormal-y kind of thing on your show. Not that it's paranormal, but like
like witchy shit.
Like witchy. Like, when we think about Halloween and the veil between the worlds getting very thin, right? So you've got that on your show where you're actually using a little magic to see how it relates to your stories. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we try. We use it to try to get answers, but I mean, usually they're pretty vague and they don't really help out, but they're pretty cool because they usually directly relate to what we're talking about. We can be like, oh my gosh, this card relates to this topic that we're talking about.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there is no tarot card. The husband did it.
Yeah.
So, that's where it may fall short, but
well, maybe if you switch to a Ouija board, I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, right. That would give you more information.
No, I can't get her to do one with me.
That's where we draw the line. Yeah. I'm already saging here every week.
I have always had a weird thing about Ouija boards. And when I was a kid, we had one and my dad was like, you can't have this in the house. And so my mom gave us a secret hiding place in her art studio to put it. And then I swear the art studio got haunted by the spirits that we would contact in there. And there was like weird noises that would come from in there.
Oh my gosh.
So then many years later, I was living in an apartment in Portland and I found a Ouija board at Goodwill. And I thought, ooh, this would be fun to play sometime. And so I brought it home to my apartment and we Ouija'd it one night, me and my neighbors and the partner I was living with. And almost immediately afterwards, my entire life fell apart. My girlfriend had an affair with a neighbor. Yeah. I think I lost my job. Like all this really terrible stuff happened almost immediately after doing the Ouija thing. And then I moved. I was like, I have to move from this apartment. And so I immediately moved to a different place because I was like, this place is cursed now.
Right.
And
it's holding that energy.
Yeah.
And I was going to bring out a Ouija board for the next episode. Damn.
Oh, no.
I'll never do it again. It's not worth it. I didn't get any insight and then my life fell apart.
That segment is canceled.
Yeah, darn.
Oh my
so,
gosh.
Of all the stories that you've collected about the Pacific Northwest, what would you say is the scariest part? What part of the Pacific Northwest would you not want to go to now because of the stories you've heard from the show?
All of it.
Yeah, I would say honestly, it's too late. I've already been to all of these places.
Yeah, that's true.
We did a case where literally this man was a truck driver. It's Keith Jesperson, and he's literally ruined the entire Pacific Northwest for me. So yeah, I mean, even parts of states I haven't been to. So
well, that's I mean, so let me ask you this question, because you do cover some heavy, certainly on the true crime side, it's pretty heavy, and the paranormal stuff is disturbing, right?
Sometimes it does get heavy too, though.
Yeah, I mean, like the ghosts, right? Troubled souls, right? So
exactly.
Since you're covering all this heavy stuff, how do you feel that impacting your daily life, or do you try to like how do you deal with like sort of the vicariously being stressed out about spooky and true crime stuff? Do you have that in your life?
We drink about it.
Well, I was gonna say, I think for us, this was already such a, maybe for lack of a better term, a fixation. That I think we already were so interested in these things, and already, we're reading about them or watching TV shows about them, listening to other podcasts about them. So for us, it's like there's really no difference. It's just this way we get to share what we've learned.
Yeah, and we get to put our own funnies in there if there is any. I mean, obviously, when we're talking about murder, there's not a lot of funny.
Yeah.
But we try to find things to, make us laugh and make the situation better.
Yeah.
Well, nice. Where can our folks find you? Whether it be on social media, do you have a web page? What is the best place our audience can listen to PNW Haunts and Homicides?
So we're on a number of the different streaming platforms.
Most of them.
Yeah, I would say the vast majority. Spotify, Apple,
Amazon Music. Yeah, all of those. Yeah.
So we'll share with you guys our link tree as well. I don't know if that's something you want to throw in the show notes, then that makes it nice and easy.
Indeed.
We just discovered Linktree, and I was like, where have you been all my life? Our show notes are, it's a whole different ball game now.
And then like for socials, it's just at PNW Haunts and Homicides, all spelled out.
Okay. You do not have a Twitter yet, I see.
No,
we don't.
We're kind of, I don't know about the Twitters.
Yeah, we're on TikTok and we barely feel qualified for that. But
we're about done with Facebook. Like
TikTok is way harder than Twitter. Twitter, you just have to say stuff. TikTok, you actually have to like
have video skills.
Yeah. This is true. Yeah, I mean, between all of the different platforms for the socials and editing and researching and actually recording, neither of us actually use Twitter actively in our personal lives. So we kind of felt like, we'd have to figure out how to use this. It can't be that hard.
Well, believe it or not, you don't really have to, because with Instagram, if you have a Twitter account, you can actually pair it so that when you have this is the joys of live recording, folks. We don't hide it. But with Instagram, when you do have a Twitter account, you can actually pair it. So when you make an Instagram post, it will also go on your Twitter. So you wouldn't have to be on Twitter at all, really, but you can still have content that people will be able to check out.
Yeah, maybe we'll go get a tweeter after this.
Yeah,
there we go.
And this is the kind of community building and skill sharing that is so great about having another podcast on our podcast.
Yeah, we learned something, but now you see what I mean when I say like we don't feel qualified for Twitter.
I see what you mean. Yes, it is, and podcasts are always a labor of love, and take up a lot of energy and time, and we spend a lot of time doing it. We have so much fun doing it, which is why we do it, and I'm sure you guys feel the same.
Oh yeah,
of course, yeah,
for sure. We get it. We're waiting until we can quit our day jobs and just work on the pod.
We've been doing this for over 4 years, so good luck.
I'll take your luck.
Yeah.
Well, one thing we do like doing on the show here is a little segment called the Nerdy Five. I told you a little bit about it before we started recording, but the Nerdy Five is essentially a top five list. And being the time of year that it is, being that it is Halloween, and being that we have discussed horror movies on the show here during the past month, I thought I would dedicate my Nerdy Five to talking about some of my 5 favorite horror movies. So yes, how we're going to do it, I'm going to introduce the movie here, say a little bit about the movie, give my thoughts, and then I will throw it to everybody here. I know the professor is a newbie when it comes to horror movies. Her first 2 horror movies that she has ever seen, we actually recorded response episodes for the podcast this past month. So but yes, here we go. The Nerdy Five. first up on the list from 1998, a movie directed by Wes Craven, a sequel to a movie you have seen. It is Scream 2. Scream 2 set 2 years after the original film. When I saw this opening night. Now, have you two seen Scream 2?
At one point, I think I have, but I've seen Scream 1 far more than I've seen 2.
Gotcha. Well, at Scream 2, there is a scene at the opening where Omar Epps is with his girlfriend, who's played by Jada Pinkett Smith. He goes to the bathroom, and he's in the bathroom, and he hears a noise in the next stall, and he's curious. He puts his ear on the bathroom wall, and all of a sudden, the person on the other side jams a knife into the bathroom wall, jamming it into his head. Now, when this happened, I'm in the movie theater, and then just at the moment the stabbing hits, the person behind me got up and accidentally hit my chair. They were apparently going to get some popcorn or something like that. So the moment the jump scare hit, it's like boom, and I'm sitting in my seat holding on to the armrest for the rest of the movie.
Oh my gosh.
Scream 2. What any thoughts about the Scream franchise? We do have a new Scream movie coming out, but what you mentioned seeing the regular Scream. Do you like the franchise?
I love Scream 1. I think it's probably one of my favorites. Have you seen it?
I have.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know you're shocked, but I have. Yeah. For somebody who likes true crime, I just cannot handle horror, and everything paranormal scares the crap out of me. So
it has so many funny moments though too.
It
that
does.
I love comedy and horror together.
Yeah.
It's one of my faves.
I think that's why I can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you have seen the first Scream, Professor.
I have seen the first Scream, and based on the first Scream, I would be willing to watch the second Scream, which I think is a strong endorsement of the first movie.
Yeah, I mean, there are some great performances in there. Liev Schreiber, who had a brief part in the first movie, is back as Conton Weary and has a much bigger role. It was the first time I actually had a chance to see him act, and because of that, he's one of my favorite actors. One of the best parts of the cast for me was Laurie Metcalf. She played Roseanne's sister on that old TV show Roseanne, but
Okay.
yeah, but she's one hell of an underrated actress. Finding out, I don't want to go too spoilery here, but finding out her ultimate role in the film makes rewatching Scream 2 so much more fun, just because when you see her in scenes, when you rewatch it, she just has so much going on. If you watch Scream 2 again, watch it for Laurie Metcalf.
Okay.
I'm gonna watch it tonight.
Yes. Oh, and lastly, this was also Timothy Olyphant's one of his first big roles.
Oh, I love him.
Oh, I love him too.
He's
so
nice.
sweet.
In the vapors.
Yeah, I'm getting the vapors.
Thought
All
it
right.
was just me.
No.
Okay.
What?
No.
He's a really good actor.
He is.
Don't apologize.
Yeah, shut up, Tim. Okay. We'll go on to my next choice here. Number 2 is a movie that came out in the 80s, but it also showed that Hollywood has been no stranger of making sequels to movies with large wait times in between. And this movie is Psycho 2. Starring Anthony Perkins, also Vera Miles, who played Marion Crane's sister in the original movie. It came back to reprise the role. Robert Loggia is in it, and that reminds me of that old Family Guy bit where they had Robert Loggia at the airport, and he's trying to spell his name. He goes, the name is Robert Loggia. It's spelled R as in Robert Loggia. O as in, oh my God, it's Robert Loggia.
Yes.
Also, it's written by the movie's written by Tom Holland, who would later go on to write and direct the 1985 horror movie called Fright Night, and he was also the director of the very first Child's Play. What I love about Psycho 2 is that it not once did it ever try to think it could surpass the original Psycho. And because of that, I think they were able to tell a really good story. It's set 23 years after the events of the original film. Norman Bates is released from a psychiatric ward, and he tries to rebuild his life, but life also gets in the way. I know you've seen the 1998 version of Psycho. You've not seen Psycho 2. Have you two seen any of the Psycho movies?
I have seen the two, the older one and then the newer one. I don't know the dates. And I'm really bad with like actors and directors and things, but I did just listen to your episode about it, like comparing the two. But I have not seen the second Psycho. I don't think I knew there was a Psycho 2.
Yeah,
I think there are 4.
There are 4 that star Anthony Perkins. You should be able to find 2, 3, and 4 on Peacock right now. Yeah, Psycho 4 was actually a made-for-TV movie that was on Showtime. So it wasn't even a movie that was in theaters. But like I said, Psycho 2, it's not as good as the original. It's not trying to be. But Anthony Perkins as Norman Bates, like that guy just nailed it. He's one of those people that was born to play a character. And you know, like I mentioned to you, Professor, in our review of Gus Van Sant's version of Psycho, you know, it's his Anthony Perkins performance kind of, you know, it's Norman Bates lives or dies based on how the actor playing him, plays him, you know, and Vince Vaughn just played him way too guilty. And I just don't like Vince Vaughn anyway, but that's yes.
Well, I mean, Vince Vaughn is, he's a controversial character. It's going to be either a love or a hate. And I just don't think I take him seriously in that type of a role. That's a tough sell for me.
He does comedy, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's what people say.
He was in Wedding Crashers.
Yes. Oh, okay. Oh, right. Yeah.
Swingers. In those kind of movies. And he, I don't hate him as an actor. I think he's okay. But like, I think it's funny, but he was really not believable. And the entire production of that Psycho, as you probably know from listening to the episode, was, very high school theater-y in general, right? So it's hard to even think about the different Psychos are so different.
Yeah, and I haven't even seen Bates Motel. I mean, that's another story that's based on the Psycho.
Good, right?
It's a good one. I liked it.
You haven't seen it? Oh Lord. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think I dropped off before the final season, but it was really good. It does. I will say, you may not stick it out all the way to the end because I certainly couldn't, but
it's very icky.
It can get that.
It's icky.
I mean, especially because of the source material where Psycho came from. I mean, Psycho was originally inspired by, probably one of the most notorious true crime stories of the 20th century, Ed Gein.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Icky.
Icky, gross.
Fan of that.
Well, speaking of Icky, let's move on to the next one here, and it is a classic starring Freddy Krueger. A Nightmare on Elm Street 3. This was Wes Craven's return to the franchise. He did create the story for this. He did not finish the script. However, the script was completed by a young Frank Darabont. This Frank Darabont in the 80s kind of got his start in the horror genre. He had a short film based on a Stephen King short story. And then, of course, this movie got him into other movies like The Shawshank Redemption. And he was all Frank Darabont is the person ultimately responsible for bringing The Walking Dead to television.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello.
Heather Langenkamp returns to the movie as Nancy Thompson. As we discussed in our episode with Heather Wixson about her new book, Nancy is probably one of the first Scream Queens that was actually proactive and not just a victim in a horror movie. So it was great to see her back. Patricia Arquette, this was also her film debut.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So Nightmare on Elm Street 3, by the looks on all of your faces, I don't think any of you have seen that, but you have to be at least familiar with Freddy, right?
Oh, yes.
Definitely
Freddy is
familiar.
iconic.
What'd you say?
Definitely familiar. I already have enough trouble sleeping, so I don't need that kind of help. Thanks, Freddie. I will see you later. I will see you another time.
1, 2, Freddie's coming for you.
Oh, those were classic. I mean, I didn't watch a Freddy movie until Wes Craven's New Nightmare in theaters. My only exposure to Freddy Krueger was late in the 80s on the USA Network on weekends. They used to have the show called Up All Night. They had Rhonda Shear and Gilbert Gottfried would switch hosting, and it was just a lot. Up All Night was a great show for like B movie fans because they would play like a bunch of trauma movies like Return to Nukem High, Toxic Avenger, stuff like that, but they would also show a Nightmare on Elm Street. Even though it was edited late at night at cable, being able to see Robert Englund have fun as Freddy Krueger was cool to see.
I love the first one. It's great. I think I watched it because Johnny Depp was in it and I was like obsessed with him. And then I became a whole new obsessed with like horror movies.
So Johnny Depp was your like entry point to horror because of Elm Street.
I mean,
but that's true for a lot of people.
It's a little embarrassing, but it's fine.
Well, I mean, what age were you when that came out?
Oh, I don't know when it came out, but I watched it. I think I was like at 15, probably.
Well, the original Nightmare on Elm Street came out in 84, so you probably weren't born.
I wasn't alive yet.
Right. Okay. I'm like, I was 10, so I remember being like, I want to watch that.
We're old. Anyway.
We're old.
Well, we're late 80s.
Yeah.
There we go. Let's go on to the next one here. This next one is also a classic, made in 1982, directed by legendary director Sam Raimi, who is going to be directing the new Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness movie, which is going to be coming out next year, starring one Bruce Campbell. It is The Evil Dead. A classic splatter film. It's about Michigan college students that travel to a cabin in Tennessee and discover the Necronomicon, bound in human flesh, inked in human blood. It has ancient burial rites that these college students just have to say out loud, and it unleashes evil spirits, and it is a gory, bloody, fun mess. I know you haven't seen it, but are you familiar with the Evil Dead franchise?
Yes, I am. Are you?
Yeah, and I'm embarrassed, but I've definitely seen part of this. I definitely couldn't finish it.
It was too scary.
Oh, you're embarrassed because it was too scary.
Yeah, even for 82, I mean, they were rather inventive with their special effects at that time. So it's not a movie I'd want to show you.
Really? Because what I'm imagining in my head is that scene where the guy's head explodes, where you know what I'm talking about, where
what movie?
Which head?
The comedian that nobody likes.
That narrows it down.
I know, right? Okay, so it's a comedian that nobody likes who was dating Ariana Grande, but they broke.
Davidson?
Who?
Davidson?
Yes, Pete Davidson is in this movie, and his head explodes.
Oh, you're talking about the Suicide Squad. That was not a horror movie.
But it was kind of like a horror movie for me.
Well,
Suicide Squad?
It was full of all kinds of like exploding body parts and like people's heads getting cut off.
Well, that's the thing, though. The Suicide Squad was written and directed by James Gunn, who's behind the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise. But James Gunn actually has a history in horror movies. One of his first movies that he ever wrote was Tromeo and Juliet for Troma Studios. And he's also, I believe, did the movie Slither, if I'm not mistaken. Yes,
that's why we call her Professor, I guess. She sniffed that right out.
She's the smart one, yes. But
like, I smell horror.
yes, but overall, I love the Evil Dead franchise. I love the franchise because it does have something for everybody. Like the second one is more of a slapstick comedy than anything else, even though it still has the horror. Yeah, the Army of Darkness, the third one in the series, my favorite, because Bruce Campbell does name drop my hometown in the Boomstick speech. That's a traditional action adventure movie with elements of Ray Harryhausen put in. The television show that was on Showtime, Ash versus the Evil Dead, was amazing as well. Just you can't go wrong. You can't go
with
wrong.
the Evil Dead.
Yes.
Never heard that before. You can't go wrong with the Evil Dead.
It is on HBO Max. Now let's go to the last.
I respectfully
Oh,
disagree.
Caitlin.
I was gonna say, Professor says I respectfully disagree.
Well, I will watch it then for everybody. Well, let's go on to the last one here. This last one here, I think, is one I know you've seen it, and I'm sure you both have seen it as well. It is a horror comedy. It is actually inspired by a British television show called Spaced that was created by Simon Pegg, and it is Shaun of the Dead.
Oh, I've never seen it.
You would love Shaun of the Dead, Cassie. It's perfect for you. It's a very funny zombie movie.
Yes.
Adding it to the list.
Yeah.
You guys, don't worry. I'm not gonna let her leave today before we watch this.
Yeah,
It's so good. It's so funny. It's mostly funny, which is why I have watched it in the past and didn't feel like it was super horror-y, because it's more that sort of trauma feel, exploding head kind of funny.
But the performances throughout the film are great.
So
I mean,
good.
the cast is absolute top notch, which is why a number of the cast are in big Hollywood movies still today. And like I said, it's kind of a spiritual sequel to the Spaced television show. And and I know it's one of those TV shows that I'm surprised people haven't heard of as much, just because of how popular Simon Pegg is. But the Space television show, one of my all-time favorite TV shows. And Shaun of the Dead was the first part of the Cornetto trilogy. The second one was Hot Fuzz. The third one was At World's End.
Yeah. Hot Fuzz is one of my favorite movies that Simon Pegg has ever done. I mean, it's probably everybody's go-to. That's a very basic thing to say, but I think it's hilarious.
And Shaun of the Dead has the same type of feel. I mean, it's Hot Fuzz was an homage to action movies while still very, very much being a very good action movie in and of itself. Same with Shaun of the Dead. And I even because I even understand, based on what I've read, that George Romero even gave it his stamp of approval when he was alive, because he ended up contacting Nick Frost and Simon Pegg and having them in one of his last movies because of Shaun of the Dead.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know who that is.
George Romero created Night of the Living Dead.
Okay. Sounds like that's cool.
Yes, and we can thank Mr. Rogers ultimately for zombies. Did you know that story?
No. And now I need to know.
Yes. George Romero worked and lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And one of his first gigs before he made Night of the Living Dead was working behind the scenes on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And when he made Night of the Living Dead, he invited Fred Rogers to see it, and Fred Rogers was there opening night supporting George Romero watching Night of the Living Dead.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I liked that guy.
Yes, Mr. Rogers is a good guy, but that is the Nerdy 5 there, folks. Definitely encourage you all to check out at least one of those movies on that list.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Especially since it's spooky season, right? Everybody's looking for horror movies, haunts to go to, and various activities. And so that's some great movies to choose from. Thank you so much, Tim.
I know. It took all of 5 minutes to get that list together. It was so much work.
That was a good list. Yeah. I have a lot on my own list now that I need to go watch or rewatch. And
Well, indeed. Well, we thank you both for taking time out of your day to be on the show. We really appreciate it. For our folks at home, again, just let them know where they can find you. There's no such thing as too many plugs. So where can find PNW Haunts and Homicides?
So we're on Spotify, Google Podcasts. Help me out here, Cassie.
Apple Music, Amazon Music, Stitcher, all of the things. Yes. And then you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at PNW Haunts and Homicides, all spelled out. You can also email us. We are looking for stories. We really, really want to read people's stories on our podcast. And they can be anonymous. We don't have to read your name. So if you would like, if you have any stories, they don't have to be from the PNW. That would be nice, but it's not a requirement.
Beggars can't be choosers.
Yeah. We're begging.
Yeah.
So you can email us PNW Haunts and Homicides at gmail.com.
And you're looking for stories about haunts and homicides.
Yeah, anything, any sort of true crime. It doesn't have to be murder.
Okay.
Any sort of paranormal, doesn't have to be ghosts, can be aliens, can be Bigfoot, can be literally anything.
Perfect.
Awesome. I could probably I have so many
Yes.
I have so many sort of weird paranormal stories from my life, but none of them make up like a story. So maybe you guys can inspire me, and I can like write all my paranormal stuff down that's ever happened.
Yes.
I have some cool stories about like one time I really needed $1,000 and I found a diamond ring and took it to the nearest pawn shop and they gave me $900 for it.
Oh my gosh, you're a witch. Did you know that you can ask the universe for anything and you might get it? And that means you're a witch.
I know, right? And so I think that this happens for a lot of us witches who maybe not even self-identified as witches. And could be great. I think that people need to really start, paying attention to when that kind of stuff happens.
Yeah. You, sir, are outnumbered.
I definitely.
He's a wizard.
That works too.
Of course.
Yeah, when Guardian Leviosa, I don't know. Anyway.
Wingardium Leviosa.
There we go. I would have felt that so bad. But we'll wrap it up here. Thank you both again for being on the show. And for everybody at home, thank you all for listening. Every Wednesday and Saturday, we're going to have something in this podcast space to entertain your ear holes. Until we meet again, we bid you adieu.
See ya.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy on iTunes, the Google Play Music Store, as well as Spotify. Remember to support Friends Talking Nerdy on Patreon. Goodbye, darling.